Imagine a world on fire. It is 1942. The Second World War is consuming everything: cities, lives, and the very boundaries of science. Inside a laboratory in Rochester, New York, a young chemist named Dr. Harry Wesley Coover is hunched over a workbench, desperately trying to win a war with chemistry. His mission? Create a crystal-clear plastic that can be fitted onto a rifle as a precision gun sight. The future of Allied soldiers depended on it. Instead, he created something that ruined everything he touched and accidentally changed the world forever. He mixed a class of chemicals called cyanoacrylates, and the moment they made contact with almost any surface, they refused to let go. The instruments stuck, the prisms fused, the samples bonded to everything in sight. Coover was furious. This was a disaster. He threw it aside, labeled it useless, and moved on. He had a war to help win, and this ridiculous sticky mess was not going to do it. That was the first accident. What nobody could have known in that frustrating wartime moment was that Coover had just stumbled onto one of the most powerful adhesive substances in human history. A compound so reactive, so immediate in its grip, that 1 square inch of it can hold over 1 ton of weight. A substance that would one day save soldiers bleeding out in distant jungles, reconstruct shattered bones in surgical theaters, seal veins without a single stitch, and find a permanent home in the kitchen junk drawer of nearly every household on Earth. He had made a mistake, and it was a beautiful one. But here is where the story gets stranger, because it took 2 accidents, 9 years apart, to bring superglue into existence. Fast forward to 1951. The war is long over. Harry Coover has been transferred to Eastman Kodak's chemical plant in Kingsport, Tennessee, now overseeing a team of chemists developing heat-resistant polymer coatings for jet airplane canopies. One of his researchers, a young scientist named Fred Joyner, is running routine tests. He spreads a thin layer of a substance called ethyl-cyanoacrylate between 2 optical refractometer prisms to measure its refractive index. Then he tries to pull the prisms apart. They will not move. They are fused, permanently, irreversibly. And this time, Harry Coover does not throw it away. Something shifts in his mind. He recognizes it, the impossible stickiness, the same maddening compound from 9 years ago, resurrected by chance. But now, with fresh eyes, he sees it differently. He and his team begin testing it on everything in the laboratory: metals, glass, rubber, ceramic, even skin. Every surface bonds instantly. No heat, no pressure, no waiting. It grips the moment moisture touches it, reacting with the faint humidity that clings to every surface in the known world. This is the chemistry that makes superglue supernatural. Cyanoacrylate molecules are in a constant state of anticipation. In the absence of moisture, they remain inert, patient, almost brooding. But the instant they encounter even trace amounts of water, which exists on every surface, including human skin and the very air around us, they trigger a chain reaction called polymerization. The molecules link together with explosive speed, forming long, rigid chains that lock 2 surfaces into a bond tighter than many metals. The reaction is also exothermic. It releases heat. This is critical. It is also, as you will soon discover, terrifying. By 1958, Eastman Kodak had packaged the adhesive under the uninspiring name Eastman 910 and launched it into the commercial market. It did not exactly sound like a revolution, but it worked. It worked beyond anything anyone anticipated. Within years, it was relicensed to Loctite, renamed, repackaged, and sold under a new identity that the world would never forget: superglue. And in 1971, Coover himself appeared on national television, on a show called I've Got a Secret and lifted the show's host clean off the ground using a single drop of the substance bonded between two strips of metal. The audience gasped. Some laughed. None of them could quite believe what they were seeing. But superglue had a far darker and more extraordinary chapter still to come. It was Vietnam, the late 1960s. Soldiers were dying not from their wounds themselves, but from blood loss in the time it took to reach a hospital. The jungle did not care for mercy. Medics on the ground were desperate. And then, someone made a decision that was either brilliant or reckless, depending on who you asked. They began spraying superglue directly onto open wounds. Not medical-grade adhesive, the same cyanoacrylate sold in hardware stores and junk drawers. They used it to seal gaping lacerations, to close arterial bleeds, to buy time where time had run out. And soldiers lived. Coover himself, in one of his final interviews before his death in 2011, recalled this moment with quiet emotion. He said, and these words should stay with you, that was something he was deeply proud of, the number of lives that were saved. The FDA had not approved it. The chemistry was imperfect. The original superglue formula, when applied to skin in large amounts, generates enough heat through its polymerization reaction to cause chemical burns. When mixed accidentally with cotton or wool, common materials on a battlefield, the exothermic reaction can intensify to the point of causing fire. And if it reaches the eye, as it has countless times in documented emergency room cases, the consequences can be devastating. There are recorded cases of eyelids fused permanently shut, of corneal abrasions, of vision scarred by the very same compound that was sealing veins in surgical theaters. One haunting case, reported in a published medical journal, describes a 64-year-old man who mistook a bottle of cyanoacrylate for his post-operative eye drops. Within seconds, his eye was sealed. The pain was immediate and searing. The bond between the tissue of his eyelid and his eyeball had to be dissolved over hours by medical professionals who understood the chemistry. He survived with minimal damage, but the danger was real. Poison control centers across the United States receive calls about superglue exposures regularly, and the data reveals something sobering. Nearly 80% of cases involve simple human carelessness. The glue does not forgive inattention. Inhaling its fumes in an enclosed space can inflame the mucous membranes and trigger respiratory distress. Getting it on skin and then forcing the bonded area apart, which instinct screams at you to do, causes micro tears, stripping layers of tissue away. And yet the same compound, in a refined medical-grade form called 2-octyl cyanoacrylate, received FDA approval in 1998 and is now used in place of sutures in operating rooms across the world. Surgeons use it to rejoin severed veins and arteries. It reduces infection rates. It closes wounds faster than stitches and leaves less scarring. It is the same molecule, feared in one context, celebrated in another. Scientists continued probing its limits. In 2011, engineers at Loctite conducted a stunt that stunned engineers and physicists alike. They used just 9 drops of superglue to lift a car weighing over 5 tons off the ground. The bond held. The crowd watched in silence. Harry Coover, who died just months later at the age of 94, had held over 460 patents in his lifetime, but he always came back to this one. The accident he threw away, the mistake he rediscovered, the compound that refused, across decades and disasters, to simply let go. There are questions that science has not fully answered. Researchers are still investigating how cyanoacrylate behaves under extreme biological conditions, whether next-generation versions could seal internal hemorrhages without surgery, or bond fractured bones without screws. There is a living science here, still growing, still reaching. Forensic scientists have long used superglue fumes to reveal invisible fingerprints at crime scenes, the vapor bonding to the amino acids left behind by human touch, making the invisible visible, lifting identity out of thin air. Even in its fumes, it seeks to connect. There is something almost philosophical in all of it, a compound that binds everything it touches, a discovery that was rejected not once, but twice before the world was ready for it, a beautiful mistake that went to war, healed wounds, blinded eyes, lifted cars, solved crimes, and sat quietly in your junk drawer waiting for something to break. The most extraordinary things are often born from failure, from a moment of frustration in a wartime lab when a young chemist cursed under his breath, peeled two stuck prisms apart, and decided it was worthless. The universe had other plans. Superglue did not ask for permission. It did not wait for approval. It simply held on, and it has never, in 80 years, let go. Some mistakes are not meant to be corrected. Some mistakes are the discovery.